Onstar is a built-in connection available in most GM vehicles.
This is Onstar. How may I help you? Help you. Help you. Help you.
I picked up the phone, expecting a normal call. It came in from a rental car. Driver unknown. Good evening. Thank you for calling Onstar. This is Tyler. How can I assist you? I was answered by a series of grunts and squeals. At first, I closed my eyes in disgust. It sounded like two kids having sex. That's all I could think of. The logistics of exactly how one might hit the OnStar call button, typically attached as a module of the rearview mirror during sex, was baffling, but it certainly wasn't impossible. I kept my eyes closed for a while and tried to listen, but not very intently. We weren't allowed to hang up on a customer. Not ever. Unless we had given permission, and even then, it was preferable we let the customer end the call. A shadow passed behind me, some supervisor or another. If they had asked why I was silent, well, I'd tell them. But they didn't. I let half a minute pass before I tried to speak again. This is Onstar. Is there any way I can help you today? The grunts stopped for a ponderous moment. A brief ray of hope that the kids would realize their mistake. But then it started up again, faster and more desperate than before. I cradled my head in my hand and began to type out a message to let someone else know I was having trouble. Maybe get myself off this call. I noticed something, however. The car was moving. And I double-checked. It was moving very quickly, at over 100 miles per hour. And sex, quite suddenly, did not seem as likely, and even if that was to explain the strange sounds, it added a distressing element. Certainly, it was now impossible that the driver was engaged in any such act. But were it to be a set of passengers, why would they be going at it in a car that was going well over the speed limit in the middle of the day? A few dark theories snuck through my mind. I half rose from my seat and waved the stalking supervisor over. I pointed to the screen and then slipped my headset off to let him listen. His face was wary, but his voice was pleasant when he said, "Excuse me. We received a call from your vehicle's OnStar module. Please let us know if we can assist you, or if this call was a mistake. You can press the blue button in the center to end the call." He winced, but before I could ask why he winced, the sound hit me. It had become a high-pitched screech, too high-pitched to be a normal scream. What could it be? And I felt almost ill. I didn't think I could even hear sounds that high anymore. The supervisor reached around me to press the mute button on the microphone and placed the headset back on my head. I cringed, now exposed to the full force of the sound. "We're going to get the police on the line," I just barely heard him say. "Send them over to see if they can discern what's going on. We might want to cut the accelerator at some point. I don't like how fast that car is going. But best to get the police there fast. If something happens, it's only our responsibility if we directly intervene on our own. So, let me show you a little trick." He opened a media player from my desktop that I'd never seen before, and I couldn't follow his chain of command as he managed to get the audio from the call to pass through the player. He turned on the audio visualizer, and the yellow soundbar immediately swelled up to fill the entire player. "Switch back to the call if that changes," he told me. "And for now, call the police." I did as I was told. The dispatcher seemed bemused, but once I mentioned that the car was speeding, that seemed to be enough for them. I gave them the road and directions the car was moving, and she put me on standby. Lowering the volume on my headset, I went back to the call for the moment. The scream continued. I'd never heard such a racket in my life. I slipped the headphone just beyond my ear, but that barely made it any more tolerable. The sound now reverberated directly against my skull. With nothing else to do while waiting for the police, I remotely turned on the hazards for the car and listened to the sound. I refreshed the speed of the car every few seconds. It continued to rise. I didn't think this make and model had a top speed exceeding 120, but I suppose we'd find out pretty soon. I switched back to the police line, but they still had me holding. They might want me to cut the power to the accelerator if they knew the car's speed was still going up. After a few minutes, the police reached out. We're on 17 now, confirmed vehicle location. Still on 17, crossing Tidewater Trail. And then there was radio silence. Crossing Belvedere Drive, currently traveling 110 miles per hour. Dispatch, are you sure your tracking is real time? We're crossing Belvedere and no sign of the car in sight. No way a car could be going that fast, not in this traffic, nor on this road. I checked the computer. Nothing was different than normal, and normal meant functional, since I'd never had this problem before. I glanced behind me for the supervisor, but he had vanished, no longer on the floor as far as I could see. The car was still there on my screen, which, incidentally, showed very little traffic. Route 17 was narrow at points, only 2 lanes for stretches of miles. But this was one of the more open sections. No problems on our end, I said, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. Crossing Snow Creek, 117 miles per hour. I put the flashers on for you. It's a 2016 white Chevy Impala. Dispatch, there's no Chevy in sight. No white cars, no hazards going off, no speeding cars, unless they're hanging out in our blind spot, but we're only going 70. We're ending pursuit. Nothing to pursue. Update your computers. They hung up abruptly, and I was left staring at a screen. 120 miles per hour. 127 miles per hour. And the scream continued. I could not hang up the phone. Only the customer has the right to terminate a call. And I listened to the scream. There was nothing else I could do. Just wanted to call you before you called me, a cheery voice said on the other end of the line before I could speak. You get a bit of blip on your computers or whatever you got over there, but I'm perfectly fine. There's no problems at all. Thrown a little off balance, I managed to say, Thank you for calling Onstar. Let me check your vehicle real quick. Everything was already waiting for me on the screen. It was a Mr. Thomas Thompson calling from a 2018 Terrain, and there had been something that had set off the accident collision sensor. Are you sure everything's okay, Mr. Thompson? Oh, everything is okie dokie, he told me as I saw the car register swerve. Just me and the kiddos out for a drive on a Sunday morning. Just wanted to make sure you didn't go calling the cops on me, alright? Everything is 100% fine. You're not gonna call anyone, are you? The car was still picking up swerves. I dug a little deeper into the data. The brakes had been slammed a few times. The passenger airbag had been deployed a few days ago, and another advisor had taken care of that. Stationary collision was all they had written. The car wasn't going especially fast. Mr. Thompson's voice crackled in my headset. We're good, aren't we? I just wanted to give you a little heads up. Everything is fine and dandy, just me and the kids and some rough roads, and didn't help much that they were raising hell in the back. I had to instill some godly fear in them, but they've calmed down. Yeah, everybody's okay. Yes, sir, I answered. Is there anything I can assist you with? Oh, no, sir, he replied back, cheerful again. I realized with a start how close to growling he'd been before. Mind telling me your name? I'd like to thank people by name. I appreciate your understanding. Yes, Mr. Thompson, this is Tom North. It's been my pleasure to assist you today. Oh, thank you, Tom. Can't tell you how much I appreciate you. A few days later. Oh, how do you do, friend? A cheerful voice greeted me before I could speak. I just wanted to call and give you a heads up. You might get a little something showing up on your computers about my car, but everything's just fine over here. I blinked. This was familiar. I had received a similar call not so long ago. Thank you for calling Onstar, sir. Let me check out our systems real quick. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Everything's good for you today? Yes, sir, I mumbled. I was getting a call from a Mr. Thomas Thompson in a 2018 Duran. It was awfully familiar. I'm looking at our information here and everything is coming up as fine. Was there anything I can assist you with? Oh, no. I just got in a bit of a fender bender and nothing big. Just tapped another fellow's car. You know those irresponsible drivers that cut you off, then they try to brake check you? Well, you won't be making that mistake again, I'm sure of it. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure everything was hunky-dory on your end. I didn't want to suddenly have the cops chasing me because they thought I was in an accident or something. That's completely understandable, sir. Our sensors are pretty durable. If it's just the light tap, you don't need to worry about anything getting set off. Was there anything else I can help you with today? No. I just wanted to make sure we're all good. You take care now, Tom. Have a good day, Mr. Thompson. I answered, realizing, a little too late, that he had called me by my name. A few days later. Thank you for calling Onstar. This is Tom. How can I assist you today, Mr. Thompson? There was quiet on the other end of the line, and I studied my screen. A Mr. Thomas Thompson in a 2018 Duran. I had spoken to him before, no doubt. Very strange, nonetheless. What were the odds of me randomly getting connected to the same man twice? Hey there, Tom. How are you doing? I'm doing fine, sir. Just fine. What can I do for you today? Well, I tell you what, Tom. My car's already starting to go a bit wonky. You see, the odometer hasn't been working so good in the past few days, and I need someone to keep an eye on the speed for me. No problem, sir. And aside from that, I'm gonna give you a little heads up that your computer might come up with a little blip. But everything is fine, it's just fine. Going for a little off-roading. Yes, sir. So, I'm looking at your speed now. You're going about 70 miles an hour. And I heard him start to whistle. Don't worry, he said between notes. I'm off-roading. No speed limit. Tell me how fast I'm going now. The map showed him as not being on the road, quite exactly, but he still was close to a town. You're at 85 miles per hour now. He started singing some off-tune Broadway-esque number. Let me tell you, Tom, nothing like going off-roading. I was going to take my dog with me today, but the dog was giving me no end of grief. I threw up in the back seat, you know? Damn car's worth a sight more than he was. Oh well, he was old. Mangy mutton dog food is goddamn expensive these days. Hey Tom, tell me where I'm at now. 100 miles per hour, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, if I may advise you to watch your speed a little bit, Your safety is important to us, and... Calm down, Tom. I got this big bump coming up. If something happens, I got you right there on the line. Okay, coming up in 3, 2, 1. His speed plummeted. Mr. Thompson whooped loudly. There was a sensor going off in the front of the car, and I kept watching the car's other sensors. His speed kept dropping, and in another minute the car had stopped. How's it looking, friend? I have some problems showing up with your engine. Nothing so bad that you shouldn't be able to get a mechanic, but I'd recommend for sure you go straight there. No more off-roading. Would you like me to call a tow truck for you, Mr. Thompson? I do believe you should be able to travel about 10 or 20 miles without too much trouble, but if you feel unsafe, we can just get you on a main road and have someone take care of you. Oh, no, Tom. No truck for me. I'd better get to the car wash first, else I don't think anyone else is even going to know I'm driving a car, and not a heap of mud and guts. Don't you worry, though. It's a straight shot from here to the car wash to the mechanic, so don't you worry. As you say, Mr. Thompson, is there anything else I can do for you today? No, Tom, you've been a treasure. Can't thank you enough. You take care now, you hear? And remember, this is all just between us. No need to let anyone know. The call ended. Mr. Thompson's voice hung in my ear, and I wondered just why I lingered on his screen. Just why? My finger poised itself above the telephone, as if to make a call. The tables have turned. He finds himself alone in the middle of the night, a deer half through his windshield, his heart half out of his chest. He knows he should try to reach for that little blue button, or for his phone, but he believes that even if he can't, they'll reach out to him. It'll probably be one of his coworkers that he'll talk to. He tries to find solace in the fact. He tries to have faith in them. If he has survived this far, he can survive until help arrives. It takes a few minutes. Brian? A voice crows at him over his car's speakers. Brian, my man, what are you up to? Gabriel, I got into an accident. Oh, I see that. Man, jeez. It sure isn't looking good. I got a peek at your backup cameras. You really worked yourself into that forest, didn't you? And you must have swerved something fierce, but man, look at you. Mr. Perfect. Well, guess you can't be perfect at everything, huh? Gabriel, I'm a customer right now. You have to put all this aside. Did you call the first responders yet? Oh, I know the protocol as well as you do. I know I'm a fuck-up and all, but I know what we're supposed to do. I just wanted to keep you company. Not like you could go anywhere, huh? Hey, can you even open your door? He couldn't, even if he hadn't been in great pain, pinned to his seat by steering wheel, and the airbag in the head of the deer through the window. The driver's side door was crushed. He knew he didn't have the strength to drag himself to the passenger side. So, what are you up to anyway, huh? You never told me. I mean, it's pretty late, isn't it? And you're out all by yourself, driving through the woods. Mr. Suicide, more like, am I right? Figure you'd be hanging out with my girlfriend. I mean, your girlfriend. Though, to be fair, she was my girlfriend first. Gabriel, he groans. He wishes for control. He wishes he was in the center, that he could transfer a call. But nobody was listening in tonight. Performance reviews had just finished, and everyone knew that the monitors left them alone for 2 weeks after performance reviews. He doesn't even think there's a supervisor on the floor tonight. Gabriel, despite how he acted in his personal life, is a professional and no one worries about him. You sure like my name tonight, don't you, Brian? Come on, why don't you tell me what you were up to? Brian weakly tries to reach for the call button to end this call, to try again. But his arm won't have it. It remains stiffly pinned at his side. My mother lives out here. I was just leaving her house when this deer ran in the road and I swerved. And I knew better, but while I swerved, I hit another deer and hit some trees on top of that and ran myself off the road. Well, you sound fine, Gabriel says dismissively. You're plenty chatty. Your car, though, well, if you could see these readings, Brian, your car is fucked. Hey, tell me again, Mr. Know-It-All. Insurance doesn't usually cover when you hit a deer, right? I mean, not when you're all by yourself on the road. That's all on you. Such a shame, too, huh? You just bought that thing, right? But knowing you just made some sad eyes at the boss, and he'll probably give you another one. Jeez, man. Some people have all the luck. Gabriel falls silent, stewing in past fights the two men of them had, no doubt. Then he starts to hum. He's killing time as much as Brian is. Brian knows the song. His girlfriend hums it when she brushes her teeth. How far are the responders? Brian asks, and he's starting to get dizzy. He thinks he might be going into shock. Oh, you know. Gabriel, get them on the phone and ask them when they're coming. I don't know if I have a lot of energy left in me. Don't tell me how to do my job, Brian. Gabriel. What do you mean you don't have a lot of energy left? Are you dying? Are you shuffling off the mortal coil? Or you just think you're going to faint? That might not be so bad. Save you a bit of boredom. The waiting must be stressful, isn't it? Gabriel, get the police on the line. I told you not to tell me how to do my job, Brian. Brian looks for his phone. It's out of reach. It probably doesn't even have a signal. He always had trouble in this area. The battery was getting low when he left his mother's house, and he worries about his car battery now. His engine has been giving him some trouble when he tries to turn it over. Gabriel tries to give him shit about his fancy new car, but it's really not new. It's just in good condition. The car is actually 7 years old, and Brian was going to get around to changing the battery, but it was one of those errands that always slipped his mind. Now he worries. If his car dies, his GPS signal goes with it. Gabriel? Aw, geez, Brian. Now you're sounding bad. Gabriel sounds almost sympathetic. Maybe you are going to die. Does that scare you, Brian? Are you scared? Brian doesn't answer. It seems cruel. It seems cruel that he could survive this awful crash, only to have to suffer through Gabriel on the other end of the phone. Hey, Mr. Perfect, I'll tell you something. Because you seem to be fading there. I didn't call the responders. I did. I just didn't call them about you. Your file was open when I called them, so there's a record of them being called. Maybe someone will fish through the police transcripts and find out I didn't do my duty. Fine. What are they going to do to me, though? Fire me? It's not like I went out there and sent a deer out to get in your way. But hey, you're all alone in the countryside. Maybe they just couldn't find you. Not like I really care. They could send me to jail if they want. What do I have to lose? They can sentence me to death. All the better. No more debts. No more traitors. Hey, Brian? Brian, are you still there? Hey, Brian. He can only hear a groan. It happens so fast, this loss of vitality. He wonders if he is dying after all. And he didn't think so when Gabriel got on the phone, but now he isn't so sure. Well, hey, listen, Brian. I know things have been bad between us since you decided you were better than me, and decided what was mine was yours. But I'll stay with you until you pass on. I mean, it's the least I can do for you. And I'll be right here on the line. Because that's what friends are for. Huh, buddy? I did not take this job because it was easy. Nah, not at all. However, it was easier than the other jobs I wanted. I'd long envisioned myself as a firefighter or an army medic or an ambulance driver, or heck, even emergency room doctors. You know, like what they have on Grey's Anatomy or whatever. But reality set in. I did not like blood. I did not like the chaos of being on the front line. I did not like being surrounded by smoke and screams, crushed under strict lines of protocol or sergeant's orders, or even worse, was when there was no protocol. Not anything that fit the situation before you, in any case. What sort of psychopath was going to sit down and write a document entailing what to do when a family gets wheeled in after a car crash, and the only survivor, a little girl of about 7 with a surprisingly strong grip, jerks the clothes of her decapitated mother? I wanted to help people, yes, but there was no calling I thought more worthy, and I wanted to be there in those dark, uncertain moments, but not in person. I did not want to see the fear and hope in their eyes, and I suppose that's why I ended up working at Onstar. It was either that or, well, Geico. I felt safer knowing that there was physical distance between me and whatever tragedy the caller on the other end of the line faced. And I felt better knowing I could pass the call off to Barney if things got too intense. But in 3 years, they never had. When it came to cars, it was the smaller things that freaked people out. Not the big things didn't happen, but when they did, it was easier to deal with from the other end of the phone. There was one incident, though, and I still think about it. There was nothing I could have done differently. Just nothing. I was working the early graveyard shift. It was 10 after 2 in the morning. The mornings were usually quiet in the emergency medical dispatch department. Riley was even playing solitaire on her phone when I walked by on my way back from the bathroom. Something I had never once seen happen on our floor, and I sat behind my desk and wondered if the rapture had come after all. And that's the only possible reason there could have been for the whole floor to go more than a minute without a phone ringing. As the clock on the wall approached 2 minutes, a ping went off on my computer. One of the built-in accident sensors had gone off on a car in some podunk town in the middle of God knew where, Oklahoma. Deliverance country, my mother would have called it. I jumped on the phone and called the local 911 dispatch down there. Later, on some sleepless nights, I'd remember the odd pause in the dispatcher's voice, the stiff reassurance that they would send someone right away, and the positive wooden thank you I was given. Around me, phones started to ring, but I kept my eyes on the monitor. I positioned my headset comfortably on my head and waited for my own line to connect. And finally, I got in. "This is Travis calling from Onstar. We've received notice that your car has been hit. Are you all right?" "Yes, Travis, hello." Now, I like to study psychology in my free time. Sherlock nonsense, my mother called it. And I like to study micro-expressions and voice profiling. I imagined my specialty to be something I referred to as audio-visual synchronization. It was a way to imagine the facial expressions of a person through their voice alone. and I believed humans to understand more emphatically through visual cues rather than vocal ones, and I thought my grand thesis could be used to aid over-the-phone psychologists and such types to bond more efficiently with their clients. When the driver of the car that had been hit answered me with a simple greeting, I got a flash of his mouth pressed together in a tight grimace, eyes narrowed, nostrils slightly flared. The face of a person in distress, but not an immediate distress. Someone looking upon their house slowly flooding during an intense rainstorm, for example. I've alerted the first responders and they're on the way. Are you still in danger? I asked. Are you able to tell me what happened? And there was some sort of vague cacophony the microphone in the car was picking up. I strained to listen to this silence, but it remained unclear. The car was reported as a 2010 Chevy Silverado, which my coworkers boasted had a very insulated cab. I'd opened my mouth to repeat my questions when he finally spoke. I'm not injured, Travis. I'm just in a situation here. Kind of you to try to help, but I don't think there's much hope for me out here. Tell me, son. What's the GPS show about where I am? Well, I've got you down in southern Oklahoma off the... No, son, no. About the terrain. Does it show you anything about that? Well, sir, there's a river right next to you. Seems like you can put your hand out and dip it in the water. There's also a hill on your left, and it looks awfully steep. Well, Travis, what I see from down here, they got an old junker on the top of that hill. They're lining it up now. And in a few minutes, maybe more if they decide to go for another round of beers, they're going to drop that junker and let gravity do the rest. Probably the impact will get me. And if it doesn't, well, probably the river will. And if neither of those is enough, they got some boys at both ends of the roads, shining their brights on me. Now I'm sure one of them will rise up to the occasion and put a bullet in my brain if they gotta. Sir, it sounds like you need to get out of that car. Is there any way? You're not a really good listener, Trav, the man said patiently, and I looked at the screen. David Brehan was his name. They are going to get me. Listen, there was never any way out of this for me. I knew that from the moment I put those ropes around that boy's neck. And I figured I'd get life in prison or death by vigilantes. Prison sounds boring, so here we are. Now, I sat at my desk. Noise rose up all around me. The noise on the floor pressed me down, and the noise from my headset, the continued crackling and yelling, just unintelligible. And it wriggled into my brain and flowed like blood down to my thumping heart. The first responders are on the way, sir, I said as I weakly, feebly tried to get my thoughts in order. They will help you, I promise. Are you injured? And is there a place you can hide? Brehan laughed, and I saw him, sitting in his white truck, tires blown out, the back bed badly dented, and the front shoved towards the swollen river next to him. He shook his head and turned towards me. Trav, you weren't listening. They ain't gonna save me none. Was one of their boys I got. The law's already failed them once, letting me walk free. They just as soon see me dead. And an old, unmarried white guy found dead in the countryside after a storm? Yeah, no one will be looking for me. The only one who'd know anything to avenge me would be you, Travis. And you don't even know what I did. I watched the monitor, I placed my hand above the button on my phone that would allow me to switch lines so I could call the police again. Although I wouldn't have to bother, though. Brehan ended the call. Even so, I suppose, if there was anything I did do wrong, it was I waited a moment too long. A second pop-up flashed on my screen that the Silverado had been hit once more. In another second, it was hit again. The location indicator shifted just an inch to the right, and the red dot was positioned over the river, till a minute later, when it was gone entirely.